Welcome to this week's edition of Red and Black Sport. Well, it's a wonderful occasion, isn't it, to beat Pakistan out there in Abu Dhabi or wherever they were. An incredible game of cricket, you'd have to say. When the coin went in the air and Brendan McCullum called it wrong, obviously Pakistan said, we'll bat here on the tabletop. And virtually we said, well, that's the end of that test match. You know, it'll either be a draw or we'll lose it. And what a remarkable innings played by the New Zealand side. Then to top it off with such a bowling, well, a massacre really of Pakistan. To the guys and girls out there that want to knock it and try and question whether Pakistan were interested in playing, to be perfectly honest, I don't think anybody was terribly interested in playing. The death of Phil Hughes had rocked the cricketing world. No one more so than Brendan McCullum, who'd played with Phil in Sydney, knew him very, very well. He was a very close mate. I can tell you, speaking to McCullum off air, that he said, when the ball was put there, I was just in the zone and I just hit it. He said, I didn't care. And what a remarkable performance. And then for young Mark Craig to pick up a tenner. Doesn't matter how it was played or whatever. But on that surface, to get a result, and if you just reflect back, the last series that Pakistan played, they absolutely flogged Australia and beat them in record times with record advantages. And this Kiwi side, I tell you what, they may mould into a pretty useful side the next couple of years. A year's time, we've got England. After that, we've got Australia. So if they can keep this nucleus together, they could be very much a force in world cricket. Of course, their eyes are all on the World Cup, where we co-host that, and that's a different format altogether. But boy, the confidence that will give a lot of those young players that have been involved, just to think, yep, we can back ourselves. And, you know, it all looks very bright. Isn't it nice to be talking something positive about New Zealand cricket? Some of the performances quite remarkable. Most sixes ever hit in the test innings, you know, things like that. Highest score ever made by New Zealand in test cricket. You know, Paul Williamson, 192, deserved 200, but he'll get there. I've got confidence in that young man. And Southey and Bolt, well, they just really knocked the cream out of them, didn't they? And then Mark Craig, as I say, finished it off. So wonderful victory for them. Good luck to them too. And, you know, to play over there is not easy. Probably one of the worst places in the world to play, apart from Pakistan. But nobody there. And given the events of the last week, well, it's just a tragedy for cricket, isn't it? But full credit to the New Zealand boys. They can hold their heads high after picking up the series win there against Pakistan. Great win to have. Really was terrific. Well, the other side of the ledger, of course, over in the UK, our Southern Hemisphere teams let us down a bit, didn't they? Australia let England win, and South Africa 12-6 down against Wales. Now that will inspire them for confidence, as about 3 weeks earlier than this will be, of course, the World Cup going on over in the UK. So our Southern mates didn't do us many favours, really. We went over and managed to win. They went over and really let these guys get some confidence. But hey, it's all exciting. We look forward to that. As we're looking forward to Super 15 for 2015. I know it seems a long way away, but we've got Tabbo Matson, assistant coach, here with us with the Crusaders. And firstly, Tabs, thanks for making it, and you're back in work, mate.
Yeah. It's frightening when you say we're looking forward to the Super 15. It seems months and months away, but pre-season's begun.
Yeah, when did you get the lads together?
Wednesday. So we're just starting off the pain in the summer. Right,
and tell me, what sort of nick did they turn up in?
They've turned up pretty well. Our strength and conditioning staff have got they've got a zero tolerance, and two, the expectations were pretty high. So the guys have gone away and they've just chipped away. And they've worked hard enough to make sure that they've come in pretty good nick, and the first lot of testing went very well.
Can we go back to this last season that's been, a few thoughts and queries about the makeup of the squad that you went into that tournament with in 2014. What came out of the debrief, Tabs?
I think, as always, and we were discussing it off here, we have such high expectations in this franchise that often when we don't win a trophy, it seems like...
But we had earned that. You know, with previous performances, we'd earned to have the high expectations.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Oh, no, and it's definitely one of the things that drives us every year is the high expectations. And so when you don't have a victory in the key match of the year, we have a pretty thorough and rigorous review process. Probably the biggest thing is we were 1 point away from winning the championship. So we've got a lot of things that are going pretty well in the program. One of the things, and you would have seen it in this year's recruitment, our roster's very stable. We haven't had much movement, and that's always good for continuation of your rugby program.
There may be some that will question that, including yours truly.
Yeah.
I just wonder if we need a thrust or a cut and thrust person somewhere in midfield. Someone just to change the... It seemed to be a lot of cross-field play rather than up the guts. I'm thinking of a Robbie Fruin, for argument's sake.
Yes.
Did that come up?
He's back.
No. Looking at perhaps that was one of the...
Oh, look, I think always. And I think one of the things we all saw when Mani and Ndola started playing, and we had a guy that could create a lot of good penetration up the middle of the field. The whole team started going forward, and it's probably, as always, it's the balance of being able to move the ball and bash through doors. So
there were a couple of bad games, weren't there? That mentally were they quite right? And I think of the opening game, we'd heard all the pre-talk that they're desperate to get out there and really have a crack. Well, they didn't have a crack in the first game, I didn't think. What happens there?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to sound like a defending team, but that's the job. My job is to and not to find excuses, but you've got a guy that misses 5 kicks in the first half against the champion team. You're always going to struggle a little bit, aren't you?
Right.
So that didn't help.
But we didn't seem to hit the rucks with the intensity that perhaps you'd think first up, you're dying to have a crack.
Yeah. I probably recall the game a bit differently, but
yeah. Well, I'm only Joe Public.
Yeah. One of the probably the key things is we didn't get the outcome, and we wanted to start better in the competition as we always do, and we didn't get that result, and we wobbled a little bit. But when you're playing 23 games in the season, there's always going to be a little wobble, and the journey doesn't always go as planned. Sometimes you take the high road, sometimes you have to knock over and take the low road.
But we do hear a lot, don't we, that if you can get your points, particularly at home, if you can get your wins at home and early in the season, it takes just that little bit of pressure off towards the tiring end, doesn't it?
Yes.
And that's where I think, is that something that you looked at, that you want to start 15 slightly differently?
I think always you want to start well. When you start well, it does take the pressure off. But one of the things we pride ourselves is finishing, with a bit of pace in the final lap. So if we can do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, I think our season will go a little bit easier, and won't have so much grey hair.
Just before we go to the break too, the attrition rate is very high, isn't it? We saw it not just in Super 15, but we saw it also in ITM Cup. The key players. It's a high risk game now, isn't it?
Oh, and just the length of the season, the attrition rate's there, so you're always calculating for probably 4 or 5 people to be injured. It's just that's the maths of the roster. What we were very lucky with was, in the final, we had every single player available. So that's going to help, and there's a little bit of luck in that. A lot of that is our medical staff, led by Roach, and our strength and conditioning. So.
Okay, when we come back, we'll just wrap what happened there. Tabs has also been extremely busy. You'd think at the end of Super 15 he's been, probably lying in Fiji somewhere in the sun enjoying himself. He hasn't been. He's been totally involved in rugby. We're going to find out where the adventures took him in just a minute. Back. I promise you I'm not putting Tabs through the grinder, but just as fans, we look at games, we look at the Sharks game down to 13 men, we're playing at home, should have beaten them. Home's your fortress, it's always been told that, isn't it? So it just didn't work, mate.
No. And I think when you look back on campaigns, there's always 1, 2 games that you're disappointed with, and if we look back to last season, I think the whole group was gutted with that. That was a great chance to go top of the table at home. And we absolutely let a great opportunity slide, and on the back of that, you're playing your playoffs away, so it always makes it more difficult.
Sure, okay. Can you gauge them before a match? I mean, is there some way you can tell when they're on song?
Yeah.
And they let you down when they are, probably.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. I mean, our game's so complex. Our game's so complex. The referee, the weather, the scrum. There's so many things that. You can have a great week's preparation, but a couple of things go wrong and the game goes away from you for 15 minutes. And at this level, opportunity's gone. So no, the answer is no, you can't. You look at a team and think, right, they're on song today, and the other team gets the upper hand. So
right. Okay, but we're not going to dwell on that because we look forward to some of the recruit that you've done, some players that we can look to see in the 2015 season. We touched on Robbie Fruin, great to have him back, which is great. And he seems to be fully restored.
Yeah. And what a great man to have back in our group, not just because of his ability in the midfield, but he is just such a great guy to have on your roster. We've got a lot of young guys, coming in as we always do, and so
Give us a couple of names.
Well, Johnny Mutherley from Northland.
Great break for him.
Well, every team needs a Fijian, as you know. Every championship team needs a Fijian.
Yeah.
So we bring another one into the group, and he's a wee rough diamond, I think. He's going to be very interesting.
Where will he play?
He's a winger.
He will definitely just stay the wing, not... Yeah, okay, so you don't need to tamper with him.
No. We've got a lot of versatility on our roster with, your Colin Slays can play at fullback and your Tom Taylors can play around the field, so...
Was there ever a thought that Tom Taylor may move? I'm just thinking he played 7 positions, I think, for you in the 2014 season. He's probably got the World Cup in the back of his mind at some stage. He's been an All Black. Did you think that he may just try and find a slot at second 5 or first 5 at another franchise?
I think it's always a double-edged sword when you're versatile, but also it means that you often get into a team. On the back of him being world class in one position and can play another one, it definitely helps his higher honours. So, whether he wants to play in 3 or 4 different positions in a year is debatable, but often you end up, for the benefit of the team, playing somewhere else.
Well, I suppose the Northern Hemisphere tour by the All Blacks proved one thing. We just have a hell of a versatile group of players, don't we?
And we were discussing earlier, when you pick a squad of 31, a couple of very, very good players are going to miss out. So
this is the World Cup,
So your versatility is really critical. So and they've shown, when they've moved position, they can do a job there. So, and we have the same. We play 23 odd games, and your ability to mix and match is pretty critical.
All right. I indicated you didn't spend 3 months in Dinnerau.
No, I wish.
Yeah, I wish. Where did it take you?
Well, I did a bit of a PD trip, and the Crusader IHPU sent me out to Denver to do a bit of coaching out there. So that was
now,
interesting
you didn't
for me.
stay on for the Chicago game?
No, I didn't.
No, were you tempted to?
The other place I've been is with the Māori All Blacks.
Correct.
We went to Japan,
so
I came back, watched ITM Cup and selected a team to go there.
Right.
We initially had a 3-match tour, which got reduced to 2. Singapore game got cancelled, but we took a very young team to Japan and won 2 contrasting test matches, which is great for us.
Yeah, one was pretty tight, wasn't it?
One was too tight. We probably didn't deserve that, but we'll take it.
Yeah. You enjoyed that experience?
Yeah, very different. One, the nature of the Māori team and the cultural significance was really enlightening, not only for me but for a lot of the young players.
Just to be around it.
Yeah. The Kaumātua leads a very important couple of weeks around their heritage and the importance of being a Māori and a good man, and the impact of the black jersey, in the community. So,
how were they received in Japan?
Well, the black jersey as a brand is phenomenal, and you add the cultural significance of the Māori culture, and 2 sellout games, which is significant there, and 2 great games. One, an exciting, 80-point affair, and the other one was a very tight arm wrestle. So
where now do you? Because you obviously watched Japanese rugby in the past as well. Have they really grown and established themselves more?
I think so. I think the first test was a bit of an anomaly. The game didn't go to their strengths, which is unfortunate for them. But the second game probably reflects where they've. I believe they're a top 10 nation, and they can be consistently.
And the potential to grow, obviously.
I think so. Yeah.
Did you run into Robbie at all over there?
No. He was out. Toddy was up there at the same time. So,
what was he doing up there?
He was up there scanning around, eating rice. The usual.
Yeah, we haven't put any weight on, has he? I saw him the other day.
No, he's a whippet. He's still a whippet.
He is. Okay, so that was an experience, but take me to Denver. Why?
Well, probably twofold. One, with the Olympics around the corner and the Crusaders, we have an association with Brazil, and we coach some of their...
Scott Robinson's been there, hasn't he?
Yes.
Yep.
I've been there. We've probably got 2 or 3 coaches that have been over there. We help their development and high-performance coaching, and I was sent out to Denver to have a look at one of the universities there and to see if there's any growth there for the Crusaders.
What did you find?
I found probably very similar to Brazil, a sport in its infancy. A massive country. They've got obstacles that we don't have. One thing they do have is, they have a lot of passion for the game, and they have a lot of people playing it, which is exciting. I think this year they had 2 million children playing Ripper rugby.
Really? Spread across the states?
Spread across the states. So the US Rugby Union are doing a pretty good job of starting to infiltrate grassroots.
What sort of catalyst is Rio 2016 for? I'm thinking sevens in the States.
Yeah, well, I think the world will know rugby as sevens in the next 20 years.
Right.
That's clearly it's going to be the platform for rugby to become a genuine global game. And
I was talking to someone this morning, we were talking about the States, talking about rugby, and they were saying the real explosion of women's rugby, who have now gone on to be mothers, so they've got children, they want to somehow get into the game.
Yeah. Well,
you found that?
Yes, and it's one of the things in Brazil were the same. It's really fascinating. Rugby's also tied with a lot of cultural and positive growth things about contribution as a person in the community and being a team person, and so a lot of people play rugby because of what ethos that brings. You know, there it's an amateur sport, and it's about your community and giving to other people. So they're probably not looking at it at a high performance level. They're thinking about it as a great grounding for young people, which is exciting when you go there.
The discussion I had this morning was interesting because it developed on from there. I'm going to take tabs down that line and just have a chat about, just what does an Olympic gold medal mean to non-rugby countries now that there's an opportunity. Back with tabs in a minute. Welcome back. Just before the break, we were touching on just what an Olympic gold medal means to so many of the big countries. Rugby have provided that now through the form of sevens for Rio. And Tabs, we're talking about if China took the game seriously, if the States took the game seriously, Canada have picked up their act in sevens, haven't they? The drive is towards Rio.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're talking about the biggest show on the planet, the Olympics. And China's a great example because although China has no history in rugby, what they do have is they have a great history in winning gold medals.
Right.
So they'll look at it differently.
What gender will they take? Will they take men or women? I think
they'll have a go at both. And one of the things they can do is they can divert massive resources towards a sport, and that's one thing they have on the rest of the world.
Could we see that in Russia?
Could do, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing they do is they have a large population of people, and if they just say, right, Auckland, you're going to now everyone's going to play rugby here, they actually have that political ability. We don't, unfortunately. And so on the back of that.
Probably just as well. But no, you did right. I mean, if it becomes a dictate, they follow it, don't they? I mean, simple as that.
And one of my experiences watching the Chinese women's team, within 12 months, their growth in rugby was just phenomenal.
Really?
And it's purely they can just train them professionally.
Yeah.
And they can dictate how they train, and on the back of that, they become pretty good athletes.
The other difference, of course, of those bigger countries is too that the bronze medal doesn't mean anywhere near as much as the gold medal, does it? We're quite happy in lots of cases. We did well to come third in the world. They have to be one in the world, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
God help us if it takes off. Japan coming in to the new format of Super Rugby. Thoughts on that?
Well, I think if you look at all competitions, they're going to grow. It's the natural tendency of all sports, isn't it? And
But do you need an expansion?
Well,
do you need the travel, mate?
If you look purely high performance and the ability for the Crusaders to do what we do, very difficult.
Yeah,
it becomes very difficult. But I'm an assistant coach. I coach defence, and what happens in the next 5 years, I have no control over.
But did the Crusaders franchise have some input into the structure?
We have a small say.
Yeah,
we have a small say.
The global market. We go to Chicago again, don't we? Sell-out stadium. The sponsor's home. He's got to be happy, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He does.
And that's the way the world's moved. We've got to pay the big money, of course, for defensive coaches. You see, so it's got to come from somewhere. All right, we look now to 2015. You've had the lads for a few days. They get a bit of a spell at some stage, do they?
They get a couple of weeks off for Christmas.
Right, like
back
yourself.
on the 5th.
Yep.
Yes, back on the 5th of January, and this is when I don't say when this is the money made, but there's probably three critical things in the competition. One is the pre-season. Right. The second one is probably the playoffs. And the third one is just having a little bit of luck around injuries and making sure your roster doesn't break too much during the season. And if you have those three things, you're going to do pretty well in the comp.
I think one thing that did come out of the Northern Tour to me is there's going to be a lot of guys in that World Cup scenario who are going to have to play a lot of rugby. Dan Carter's one I'm thinking of. He's going to have to front, isn't he?
Yeah, that's the key. They're going to have to play good rugby. And I think what we saw in the Northern Tour, and also for the last 2 years, is some good people are going to miss out. And the team seems to carry on without some of the players we think they may miss. Crude in the starting 10, and he had a couple of weeks off because of the indiscretion, and the big black machine keeps rolling forward.
Absolutely. And he's probably been a bit of a victim of all that, as the other players have taken their opportunities.
Well, and one thing they will, and Slady's probably the best example. He has taken the opportunity, and if he plays well, we hope he gets selected. But it means someone else is going to miss out.
Okay. The other thing, of course, that it does mean is that the strength of Super 15 season, 2015 season, is going to be intense, isn't it? Not like your slack year because it's World Cup year. This is really full on.
Well, and there's no June window, so there's nothing breaking up. There's nothing. The players aren't focused on 3-game tests against England. It'll be focused about winning a championship, and on the back of that, getting into their World Cup group.
So don't you, before your season starts, that every team is going to be playing flat out. There's South Africans that want to make a World Cup. There's Australians that want to make a World Cup. You guys want to make a World Cup. It's pressure on these players now, which I think is so great. As a spectator, we should see some really good rugby in Super 15 2015.
Without doubt.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the coaches. Makes it hard for coaches.
Oh, rubbish. Yeah. That's why you do it.
Yeah, well, it is.
Yeah.
It's a great challenge, and it will be another exciting year. Very different, won't it? No June window, shortened. Well, it's not a shortened comp, but it's in and out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, of course, the World Cup at the end of the year. So, exciting year.
We'll see a difference in pattern, do you think? You're the defensive coach, for argument's sake. I mean, I watched the Welsh test, for argument's sake. That rushing defence, I think they did get a bit of time off the blocks, a bit ahead of themselves too by Wayne Barnes. But, you're probably going to... That seemed to shut the All Blacks down a bit. They were in their face early on, weren't they? SBW didn't quite know what the hell had hit him. You'll have some changes, I assume?
Well, you always evolve it. One of the things you've always got to take forward is your biggest weapons, and we had the best defensive record in our conference. And we'll be looking just to harness that again. The rushing defence is very difficult, but what we saw from Wales is about the 60-minute mark, they ran out of juice. So
correct. It's a very taxing way to play it, isn't it?
Either they're not doing it in their domestic competition, so they're not used to it at the international level.
Right.
But it's definitely something every team, and us in particular, try and do is get out of the blocks.
I know you're on the defensive end of it, but at the same time, you don't win games unless you've scored more points than the opposition, do you? So somehow, you've got to be creative. Points have got to come from somewhere.
Well, and our focus always is about scoring tries.
Right.
And a lot of this is from our turnover ability and our counter-attack from kicks, and that'll be a big part of it.
Just before we go, because I've got him here, and I know he knows him very, very well. We just got to salute McCaw, don't we? What is the man? 100 tests as captain. I mean, for God's sake, that's 14 years if he played.
Yeah, will it ever be done again? I don't think we all realise how great he is until he's finished, and we look back and think, wow, that's not phenomenal. That's nearly impossible.
It's freakish.
It's impossible. You look back and if you look forward and say someone's going to do that, you'd say that's impossible.
The other thing that I think of when I watch him too is why the hell would he stop? He's playing so well. I mean, when do you call time?
You want to follow the big Brad Thorne?
Yeah.
I reckon 38, 40. Still going?
Yeah, still going.
I don't think Richie's as keen as Brad, but anyway.
But the knockers came out at the start of the year. There's no way he's going to be able to do it. He finished that Northern Tour stronger probably than anybody else, I would have thought.
He's a very special man.
And he's a special man to you, isn't he? Yeah, very much so as far as just him being around, his presence on and off the field, he's huge. So.
Well, one of the things we've highlighted is, and you never know when people are going to retire, but clearly it's not far away, and for the young guys who rub the shoulders and brain with him, they've only probably got a year or two to do it, so we should really harness as much of his knowledge. And they would just
soak it up, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
It's a rare opportunity.
It is.
Tabs, Christmas well, mate. And we have saluted Sir Richie McCaw. That'd probably be one of the rugby highlights for me this year, to watch that man go around. I'm looking forward to next year, 2015 campaign, with everybody having a crack to get the Webb Ellis Trophy. Back next week with another Pete Smith host. Well, the Red and Black Sport, sorry.